Hello and welcome to the first episode in a new series of documentaries brought to you by the Duncairn Arts Centre, which focus on up-and-coming talent from across the island of Ireland. Since the start of lockdown in 2020, the Duncairn team have been upskilling in video and sound production, and with support from our funders, the Paul Hamlin Foundation, Esme Fairburn, Belfast City Council and the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, we're delighted to bring you these documentaries as part of our commitment to showcase, support and develop emerging artists. Today we are in the picturesque surroundings of Howth Harbour in Dublin. Howth is renowned historically as a fishing port and trading village, but in more recent years for its connection to creative talents across literature, film, broadcasting and music. And it's music that brings us here to meet the singer, songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Luke Howard. As well as having a degree in jazz performance, Luke is from a musical family and his influences spread across many genres which he weaves together into his own unique and inspiring sound. Later we'll be visiting Luke in his home studio and hearing him perform solo songs in a variety of special occasions and performing with his band Uaim in the Duncairn Arts Centre. But for now, let's meet Luke and find out more about this prodigious talent.
Hi Luke, thank you very much for inviting us into your house. Before we start your musical journey, I would like to talk kind of about you personally and go right back to the start. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your family heritage?
So my mum and dad are both musicians. My dad is a classical guitar player and he also is a songwriter and singer. And then my mother is a singer. She plays the piano and she plays the traditional Irish fiddle and would have grown up doing kind of traditional Irish singing and that kind of stuff. So definitely that hearing them play their music around the house had a very large influence on me as a child, just absorbing that by kind of osmosis. My siblings both play music as well. My sister plays the harp, which you can probably see behind you there. And she also plays piano and guitar and sings, and my little brother is a very good drummer, and so that we kind of would have played together as kids and stuff growing up, and I would have taken lessons doing classical piano, classical violin as a kid, so there was kind of a broad, I suppose, musical diverse education, partly formal through lessons and then partly just by messing around on instruments as a kid and playing with my siblings and that kind of thing.
I understand that your parents, your father in particular, had a real strong connection to the Dubliners, one of the greats of Irish folk.
That was, my dad would have made kind of an album with John back, I'm not sure, maybe in the 80s or the 70s, called In Our Own Time. So it was kind of half and half John's compositions and half my dad's compositions. And then, my dad had a very strong friendship with Barney as well, who lived down the road. So, I mean, I would have seen them around the house a lot when I was growing up, if they were doing gigs or rehearsing or hanging out or whatever. And maybe hearing their music probably had some kind of an influence as well. I got a kind of a picking lesson off Barney one time where he told me that a plectrum is like a little bird and that if you squeeze it too tightly, you'll kill it. But if you're too light with it, it'll fly away.
The morning mist has made its departure as we pace along the pebbles to the water's edge, bare beneath the moon as we shimmer in the cold. How hearts they do Now I'm alone, sitting in the shallows. The waves that moved between us bent to different shores. Turbid waters, some in her reflection, lapping low. pictures in my mind, sifting through the shadows left behind. Memory blotted in amber hues, rendered now in shades of blue, leaving colored stains inside. Falling from the firmaments above us, like fragments of our fables drifting towards the earth. I'm twisted, gnarled, and knotted through your branches, and I can't find the strength to
And do you think you would have got into music if your parents hadn't been into it so much? Would something have eventually kind of drawn you in?
I hope, yes. You know, when I look back on my childhood, I've never really thought about doing anything else other than music. You know, I was interested in art and drawing and painting and stuff as a kid. I suppose, like, through music and art, like, it was a way I could kind of express myself but also focus. You know, like, I found it difficult to focus in school and kind of in other ways, but I always found that I could focus a lot when I came down to something that was kind of interesting to me like that. So I think, as well as, you know, as my parents having an influence, like, I can look back on times in my life where different friends had an influence on me as well. You know, like when I was maybe 10, this friend of mine from up the hill called Scott kind of moved into our school, and he was into like heavy metal and stuff. So kind of after his influence, I started playing the guitar, and really all I wanted to do was learn Metallica and Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin guitar solos. You know, I used to have an iPod that I'd walk around Dublin city, and I'd actually be singing along to these solos as I was walking down the streets, and I'd sometimes get people kind of looking at me with raised eyebrows. You know, but I think doing that actually it was like without realizing was a kind of educational experience in itself. You know. Load up on guns, bring your friends, it's fun to lose and to pretend she's overboard, self-assured. I know, a dirty word. Hello, 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 how low, hello, 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 how low, hello, 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 how low. I'm worse at what I do best, and for this gift I feel blessed. Our little group has always been and always will until the end. Hello, 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 hello. With the lights out, it's less dangerous. Here we are now, entertain us. It feels stupid
we are now entertainers. And I forget just why I taste. Oh yeah, I guess it makes me smile. I found it hard, it's hard to find. Oh well, whatever, never mind.
What was Hoth like for a young man growing up?
It was kind of a place where you could explore and, you know, feel free to kind of live your childhood in a way that was expressive, I suppose, in some different ways. You know, there's a lot of woods around my house. There's a lot of nature and a lot of scenery. You know, so when I was a kid, a lot of my friends, we would kind of fit ourselves into all the nooks and crannies of the underbrush and just be out playing, you know, stick fights and climbing trees and building tree houses and building huts and that kind of stuff. And then to when I was a bit older, you know, maybe venturing a little farther out up the cliff paths, doing the kind of finding all the little hidden beaches around the way. I spent a lot of time busking as a teenager down on the pier in Hoth, and I suppose that was a very formative musical experience for me, learning to play in front of a crowd and in front of an audience. The kind of character building stuff, having to deal with hecklers and the likes.
In the open air, without a care, the day rolls by us as we sit and share. Could be anywhere, anywhere. Wind moves through the trees, warm summer breeze, rambling clouds all moving at their ease. What do you see? What do you see? In the world we know, time seems to move so slow that everything is different before you know. I've missed the open air, to sit without a care, midst the friends and faces that I know. Nestling in my head, the crows made their bed, turned me around and left me on the edge, looking down, looking down. and time again, we all need a friend to hold us steady as we descend into ourselves, into so I'm glad I had you there to sit in the open air and talk of all the things we used to know. The world's changing as we grow, and some things may come and go, but I'll be here for you, don't you know? Yeah, I'll be here for you, don't you know? Yeah, don't you know?
I used to kind of try and write songs for the sake of writing a song when I was younger, but I think maybe part of that was because I was, from school dynamics, or for some reason or other I might have been a bit shy about being very outright with my feelings or whatever at the time. But now I kind of think the best songs that I've written have been kind of necessary for me to figure out something that's been going on. So definitely a form of self-therapy in that, and through kind of keeping a journal and just documenting little things that you think about during the day, or things that you see. Or I really admire writers in that respect, because it goes beyond the craft of just writing. It's kind of almost like a life pursuit. Any of the writers that I know, they're always actively kind of observing the world, observing people, and in touch with the way they feel in certain situations, and always keeping note of that. And that's something I'm trying to kind of learn a bit more about in my own creative process. Poets and stuff, I think a lot of my influence for writing would come from friends and family. Maybe my dad would have put a lot of Yeats poems to music for me growing up, so I always have inadvertently would have heard Yeats poems without realizing it. Like even when I was a child, my dad might be singing a version of The Stolen Child or The Fiddler of Dooney, or he has a blues version of the Lake Olive Innisfree called Bill Butler's Blues that he does. And so I would hear the lyrics of this and not realise it might have been Yeats. I made my song a coat, covered with embroideries out of old mythologies from heel to throat. But the fools caught it, wore it in the world's eyes as though they'd wrought it. Song, let them take it, for there's more enterprise in walking naked.
You have a degree in jazz performance from Dublin's Newpark Music Centre. So what is jazz performance?
When I was a teenager, I think the first album that I remember listening to was Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. And I used to, when I was doing my art portfolio for art college, I used to put that on, listen to it for hours, and while I was drawing or doing things like that. And I didn't really know what was going on in that music, but I was really fascinated by it. It was kind of washing over me. I had that experience of just being overwhelmed by the kind of the harmonic and rhythmic and melodic kind of, not complexity, but there is complexity, but also just how different it was to what I was used to. And I think one thing that I've been very drawn to in music throughout the course of my life is improvisation and spontaneity. The kind of study of jazz is something that's definitely going to be ongoing throughout my life. Or music in general is something that you should never look to master, because there's always so much more to learn, you know? It's kind of like in The Matrix. You've got that guy, the key maker, and he opens a door and then it reveals a hallway of doors. And that's kind of what learning about music is like. Every time you look at one thing, you realize the endless complexity of it. There's so much more than you can ever possibly learn, but that's also kind of very exciting, you know, because you can always be developing in so many different ways. I had some really transcendent experiences playing jazz with people and improvising with people, and because when you remove that kind of structure, then anything can happen. There is structure within jazz, of course, but just the kind of being able to follow your instincts and your feelings in music, and then bringing that kind of experience into the other music that you play, if it's folk music or anything. Trying to be in the moment and let that come through is definitely part of what I'm trying to do now as well.
As well as kind of learning the basics of music, your chords, your scales, etc., do you think that improvisation can be learned?
Definitely, yeah. I think, like, especially music is really, I think, a language, and it's something that's kind of parroted by people a lot, but it's really true, you know. And I think that's the best way to think about learning improvisation or learning jazz is, you know, you're learning to communicate or learning to tell a story with what you play, and by listening to people and by mimicking people, and then by messing around with things that you found, and by trying to play with people, like the same way that you try to develop your language. I think it can be learned by anyone. You put a baby into any situation and they'll learn how to speak complicated languages without ever getting a lesson before. And you know, I think that's the same with music. If you're in that environment with it, you can definitely be taught it or learn it. I think all theory really comes from music. So theory is the attempt to explain what music is, but the music has been there before the theory. You know, one of my favorite jazz piano players, Bill Evans, he says that you have to kind of enjoy the process and not make the end goal of being a great improviser the ultimate goal, I suppose, because if you do that, then you're kind of, you'll set yourself up for disappointment, but also you'll be overwhelmed because you're trying to learn so much too quick. Whereas if you take small parts of things and work on them, then I think you can really internalize that language over time.
Shadows in our me spinning down through mist and shadows, all circling round in purple plumes of blue and red, all swirling around inside your head. Through caves, caverns, and empty halls, deep in the silence of it all, I dream of water in which to tread and watch the clouds drift overhead. Waves will wash upon the shore, and the sun will blaze forevermore. And when the fires in your head have burned away and left instead space to see things as they are, no matter near or
As a musician, what would success mean to you?
I suppose I'd love to be able to sustain myself off creating music. It's very difficult to kind of monetize your creativity in this day and age. So it's kind of, there's always compromises with that you have to make. I know I'll have to teach a bit, I'll have to do things, but I really enjoy the teaching as well. So I'm working it out as I go. I'm maybe trying to decrease the teaching as I get a bit more experience and as a musician. I'd like to play music that I enjoy playing with people. There's so much music that I want to make throughout the course of my journey that I haven't probably even worked out yet. I feel like I'm at the beginning steps, but I'm really excited about the future and about collaborations that I might do or ideas that I might have for music or for working with other musicians, that kind of thing.
I'm awake as you're sleeping, covered in the early light. I could almost hear what you're dreaming as you let go of the night. And the breathing of the world was rested on your window pane. And when you put your arms around me, birds were chirping in the rain. When you were sat by the mirror, slowly combing your hair, how it trickled down your shoulders, and you forgot that I was there. And in that tender silence, I could hear your heart in mine. And in that moment of surrender, formed a dyad in time. Though we moved in different ways, I'll take those with me always. Though we moved in different ways, I'll take those with me always. When you were crouched in the door frame, cradling a wren in your hands, your silhouette lit by the lights outside, all I could do was stand. And I think of you when it's quiet, covered in the early light, how I almost heard you dream as we walked into the night. And though we move in different ways, I'll take those with me always. And though we moved in different ways, I'll take those with me always.
Thinking back on my time spent writing, arranging, practicing, performing, and moving to different places throughout the completion of this project, the thing that really shines through the most for me is how much fun I had, and how much fun it was to work with the crew at the Duncairn. I felt like I was welcomed with open arms, and within minutes of meeting the team, I felt at home in their company.
My love said to me, my mother won't mind, and my father won't slight you for your lack of kind. Then she stepped away from me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. She stepped away from me, and she moved through the fair, and fondly I watched her move here and move there. She went with one star away. As the swans in the evening moved over the linn.
There was one moment in particular when we were all stood on top of the Strand Cinema in East Belfast, where I had just finished setting up my keyboard and I was looking around at everyone once again kind of engaged with the task they had at hand, setting up the cameras, setting up the lights, setting up the sound, making sure nobody falls off the roof. But I remember just standing there amidst all that and thinking, this is really, I've never experienced anything like this. I've never had anyone go to these lengths in order to do something to support me as an artist and a musician along my journey. And the Duncairn is an incredible place for that.